By
really
surprising
enjoyed
her
it.
in Paris, you didn't like propose or anything.
No,
ring.
You just by showing
By
up.
showing up. Gosh,
Yeah.
we got to work on
Well,
that.
we
gotta
didn't
work on
know. Neither of us had. All right, we're live. Welcome to the Money Lap Podcast. I'm Parker Kligerman, joined as always by Landon Cassill. And Landon, before you even speak, I don't want you to say a word here. I just want to introduce this amazing moment that was put on social media this week. Cue the tape, Josh.
Up there leading this thing. Curve in. You can't see that far up there.
Landon Cassill.
Okay. That's great.
There's a up ahead of us.
What the hell is the 40 car doing?
He's gonna beat a wreck. He'll never get off too.
I just wish I could watch it.
Let's shake and bake or something. We gotta go.
When you had taken the lead at California Speedway, I want to say 2014, 2015, on old tires, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
And the field took notice of you doing such a thing. How did it go?
It didn't actually. It almost worked out as planned. I ended up with a flat right front on the white flag lap. Otherwise, I was kind of on track for maybe a top 20 finish. Ended up like 24th or something, which is if you want to hear why I ended up in that situation, it was very strategic and it worked out flawlessly. So it was nothing special of a day for us. 25th to 30th place car all day long. And the last pit cycle fell in a very awkward spot where everybody was pitting, I think, within like 20 laps to go at the end of the race. And we went long on the pit cycle and did not pit under green. And the caution came out at the very end of the pit cycle, and it trapped a couple cars behind me one lap down. I ended up being the tail end of the lead lap. So when pit road opened, and this is a call that I actually made from the driver's seat, obviously it's Fontana. You know, I've got 40 laps on my tires. You basically have to get tires, right? Everybody's coming in for tires. So there was like 6 or 7 cars or a handful of cars. I can't remember how many cars, but I'll inflate it just to make it sound more exciting. There was a bunch of really good cars like Brad Keselowski, competitive cars that were trapped a lap down behind me. And obviously they just needed everybody to pit in front of them, take their wave around, and they just had pitted, so they had sticker tires so they could restart at the tail of the field. So when pit road opened and I had these cars behind me, all the lead lap cars pitted in front of me, and I just told my team, I'm like, hey, I'm going to stay out. And I chose to stay out because
You were
what
that
it
guy.
did, there was only like 5 laps to go in the race. It might have been a green, white checkered. I don't even remember. There was only a few laps to go in the race. It trapped those guys a lap down behind me. Mm-hmm. There was no way they were going to lap me in those 3 laps, even with my old tires. And so I didn't have to outrun anybody on tires. I just had like 5 free spots from cars that I wouldn't have beaten otherwise, just by staying out, trapping them a lap down. Put myself in an awkward spot on the restart by restarting on the front row or whatever it was. I think I was the leader, the control car. I can't remember.
Yeah, you were. They made it well known in that little video.
Yep. And so the restart was absolutely horrendous, impossible, because everybody behind me had stickers. I couldn't even get out of the restart box. I was spinning the tires so bad. Jeff Burton was behind me, absolutely just pounded the rear bumper, got in his way. It was all I could do just to get past the start-finish line and get out of the way so that everybody could start passing me, because that's what I wanted to happen. I wasn't trying to retain the lead by any means. And I was just letting the field go by, and I got a flat right front tire and didn't like pound the fence or anything, but just kind of drug the right side a little bit and came in, I think, 25th.
Well, I love the effort. Thanks, KB, NASCAR fan, for posting that on Instagram. I was looking at some of the comments. There was a BG broadcasting who said, someone explain for someone who doesn't watch NASCAR, I'm trying to get into it.
Well, there you go. Listen,
you got the
listen to
explanation.
this. It was very strategic, and honestly, Corey LaJoie did the same thing recently, I think in the last couple of years. He did a similar move. It might have been at Martinsville. I can't remember. You have to ask him. But
Yep.
Yeah, just stay out, trap them a lap down. That's good.
One other comment that was in the top comments with 1,000 likes, by the way. Landon was awesome at wheeling boxes. He could make a 35th to 40th place car, 20 to 25th place car. So just a little pat on the back for you. Yeah, that's kind of them. Let's head in the PR lap. We already just talked about you, but we're going to continue that where we talk about ourselves. I did not race this past weekend. We had an off weekend. I surprised my girlfriend in Paris. So, even surprised myself. Yeah, I mean, it went great, except I had to get this guy Claude out of the apartment. But once he was out, it was awesome. And, yeah, we had a lot of fun. So, that city is cool.
By
really
surprising her in Paris, you didn't, like, propose or anything?
No
ring.
You just by showing up.
Showing up? Gosh,
Yeah.
We got to work on that. We got to work on that.
Neither of us had planned this off. Had looked ahead at this off weekend. She had just left 2 weeks prior, but then looked ahead to when I actually can go over there. And she's so busy during the Olympics that we're barely going to be able to hang out. And so it was like, this is actually the last chance we have to actually hang out if you come here. So we wasn't sure I was going to do it. I was maybe going to go to Indy, as I mentioned, and then I looked at the flights and the prices were the same. And with miles, I was able to make it happen. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to Paris. So it wasn't that tough. I mean, honestly, when you think about it, it's like going to the West Coast. It's not massively different in terms of time.
Couple hours farther. It's double the flight. It's
no, it's not
almost
double the flight. No, not double. No, from here to San Francisco is 6 hours. It was 7 hours there and 7.5 back, 7:45 back.
Oh, that's not bad.
And going back is the best thing ever. Left at 12 o'clock their time, landed at 2:30 this time. It was the most amazing thing ever. I was like, you have the whole day. Yeah. Europe, the East Coast is great. It's tremendous. So
it's
totally
the way out
recommend
there.
it.
The red eye out there is the one that sucks.
No, that's the tough one. You got to sleep. You got to make sure you sleep. I didn't do that, so then I was up for like 20 hours, which is crazy. I will say the coolest city I've ever been at. Like everything is just so cool that like it redefines the word of cool. Like they're just so effortless with the coolness. Everything you go to, you're just like, wow, this is the coolest restaurant I've ever been to. Oh, this is the nicest place I've ever been. And, oh, this is the coolest area I've ever been. How long has it been here? Oh, 2,000 years? Oh, that's cool. That makes sense. Yeah, a lot of people walk through this doorway.
It's the food for me. The food there is delicious. Yeah, the food is just so good. The food in Europe, if you eat the food in Europe, you realize that they're just poisoning us here in the United States.
So to that point, not to get totally derailed, I swear we're going to talk about motorsports in this podcast. I've had that opinion since we went to Spain a couple years ago for a wedding. Mm-hmm. And I was there for like 10 days, and I ate just all the time, barely worked out, and I'd never been skinnier and felt better. And I was like, what is going on?
It's not an opinion, Parker. It's a fact.
It's a fact. But what
they're killing us here.
No one knows what it is exactly, though. Like, obviously, there's preservatives in a lot of stuff. You can drink the wine there and have no hangover, which was amazing. Unless you drink Spike Light Coors, which has no hangover. But that was a pretty good plug.
Know if that's true.
This is a pretty good plug. 10 out of 10. But definitely something there.
I might drink Spike Light coolers for many reasons. Not having a hangover is not one of them.
Maybe it's their urban planning. Everything's a walkable city. You can walk from place to place.
No, it's not urban planning. You can go to New York and have the same experience.
Yeah, you can have a great same experience.
There's something in the food there, the regulations around food. I don't know what it is, but they're killing us here in the United States.
I want to find out what it is. I will research it. I've got to know. Because once again, I ate like steak. I did like a steak frites testing tour. I was like rating steak frites in different places. And so I ate a lot of fries, a lot of steak, and drank a lot of wine and felt amazing the whole time. So there's something to that. Speaking of amazing, people love our podcast. Let's talk about the reviews. Apple Podcast, newest review here. Great podcast and love the content from PBJ Motorsport. One of the best podcasts out there. I should probably expand this. I can't read this so small. One of the best podcasts out there for motorsports. They cover all aspects of racing and Paris and the food difference between Europe and America. Oh, it's funny he put that in there. And hit on the behind-the-scenes aspects, which is a must for any diehard racing fan. Keep up the awesome work, Parker. Landon, you get no kudos. He did not say awesome work. Do you want the YouTube one?
Yeah, sure, because I get some kudos in this one. I'm so glad. This is from ACAV 704. 704 makes me think this person might be in Charlotte. I'm so glad Landon brought this up. I'm so over drivers apologizing for moves they make for the win because given the opportunity again, they would make whatever move possible for them to win a race. Yes, that's right. So don't apologize. You don't have to say sorry. You can maybe feel bad. You can maybe sorry with a pat on the back. I don't know. But, like, just own it.
Yeah. Don't say
We
sorry.
talked about that last year.
Except for when
week.
you're trying to mitigate the situation and you definitely don't want to fight because you're tired and you just raced the whole time. And so you're just like, sorry, man, I'm really, really sorry. And then you get 5 feet away and you're like, screw that guy. Speaking of a guy who might have to apologize, a Postal Service worker, we just had this pop up, was pulled
Great
over for
transition.
racing a Ford Mustang in a postal van. He reached over 100 miles per hour in a postal van. I thought the fastest postal worker was our current driver at E-Racer in the NASCAR series, Ray Alfala. As you know, he might still be a postal worker, actually, as his main job, besides being a NASCAR driver. But he was for years. And I thought he would be the fastest guy. This one, give him a run for his money there. Not sure what he's trying to pull off. But
I mean, postal workers are just, proving themselves as drivers.
that is true.
I want to see this guy hit the track.
Well, speaking of, wait, real quick. I realized this the other day, and I didn't know this fully. But do you know that a taxi driver has won the Indianapolis 500?
What?
Yep. And you're going to know the name, and you're going to be blown away when I say it. Danny Sullivan
Really?
was a taxi driver. Yes! He was a taxi driver. I was like, wait, what? I literally had... So someone said this to me the other day, and I called them out. I was like, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Like, there's no way. He was a New York City cab driver. Yeah, it was one of his jobs before racing. And he also was a lumberjack at one point. So, you know what, kids? You don't need to just start at go-karts at 5 and think you're going to make it to the Indy 500. You can be a lumberjack, a New York City cab driver. And I think that's the funniest thing is that people always talk about cab drivers. Like, if you want to find the best driver in the world, go to some crazy city and hire the cab driver. Mm-hmm. That's what happened with him.
Can you imagine your cab, like, hopping into an Uber or a cab and then be like, yeah, I've won the Indy 500.
You're like, so it didn't. What'd you do with all the money? It didn't go well. I think that race pays a couple $1 million these days. Was it at almost $3 million now, or is $3 million?
Is that what it
To
pays
win?
to win?
I think it pays $3 million to win. Josh, look it up. Last year's was the highest ever. Was it $3.1 million? I want to say.
Yeah, I'm gonna
It was
look it
big.
up real quick, and then while I'm doing this,
Yep.
I wanted to ask you guys a question. What was the job that you did before you did racing full time? If you had any jobs.
I definitely did. Did you? I'll go first if you want.
Go ahead.
I worked at a yacht club here in Connecticut, in the town I grew up in, Westport, and for about a summer, and I scraped off docks and tied up boats. Yep, and bird, literally just tons of bird everywhere. I only lasted a couple months, and then I was like, wait, racing's got to pan out. I hope.
Mine's pretty easy. I've always loved the car business. My family comes from the car business, so no racing, used car business for me.
Well,
Simple.
a good
Wow.
payday there is not quite as good as an Indy 500 win. Joseph Newgarden took $3.666 million last year,
3.6.
and the total purse topping $17 million last year.
Yeah, biggest person in motorsports. That's right.
What do you think his share of that is?
50%? Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Compared to
payday.
the
You can
Daytona 500 is 2.5, I think. So
you can buy a lot of diecast with that if you are a diecast collectible. If you won the Indy 500 and you were a diecast collectible, look no further than SpoilerDiecast.com, one of the fastest growing companies in the industry. What sets them apart, Parker? Well, I
What?
will
Please
tell
tell
you.
me. Yeah.
They pride themselves on exceptional service because no other diecast distributors do. All their orders ship either same or next day. You get your hands on your favorite products in no time. And the best part, they have free shipping on orders over $20. You can get a smooth and affordable shopping experience with SpoilerDiecast.com. They have over 1,100 unique products currently in stock. That's more than the previously stated 800, Parker, if you know math at all. SpoilerDiecast.com boasts one of the largest inventories in the industry with those 1,100 unique products. They have NASCAR focus, but they have all kinds of diecast and apparel options. Obviously, in the month of May, check them out for IndyCar stuff. F1 is big right now. The boys here at the Cassill House have some F1 diecast that they play with. They are passionate racing fans like ourselves. So they are growing, and they're even growing beyond SpoilerDiecast.com because Spoiler Diecast has a brick-and-mortar location in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So if you're rolling through the state of Indiana during the month of May, which every true American should at some point in their life,
Amen.
Stop by Spoiler Diecast.
Hold on. You also buried the lead there. Are your boys playing with F1 cars and not stock cars?
Oh, they got a lot of stock cars.
I was going to say here, I was going to be like, have they been inceptioned through this whole popularity boom where I see all these kids as I go around this country wearing F1 gear? I actually saw less F1 gear in Paris this weekend than I see at a normal day here in Connecticut or North Carolina.
Interesting.
I kid you not. And when I was growing up, I was so obsessed with the couple chances I got to go to Europe when I was younger because I would see F1 ads and I would see F1 apparel on people and I'd see F1 racing magazines. And to me, it was like, oh, my God, there is a world where people care about it as much as me, as opposed to in the U.S., no one cared. Like, it was nothing out there. No one knew what I was talking about. And I was such a loner in that sense. And now it's flipped. I think it's even bigger. It might be more popular.
So I'm going to be honest with you. I actually had a realization this morning that I did not text you that I normally would, but we're talking about it here anyways. It just hit me. I think it hit me when I saw the announcement on Twitter, which I don't even see it in our show notes, that Andretti Autosport hired former F1 CTO to head up the Cadillac team, technical side.
Is that Pat Simmons?
Yes. I don't. Yeah. I guess I don't remember his name, but it just hit me seeing the logo there, the Cadillac logo, and the Andretti logo, and like F1 all together. It hit me that I'm like, there it is. There's my American connection. Like, as I don't know if this is me as an old guy or me the moment that they come out with an F1 team, but I think it just hit me that it would be cool to be a Cadillac owner driving a Cadillac wearing Cadillac branded F1 gear in the United States. Like, yeah, okay, I get it. I see it. What a perfect brand to represent the United States in F1.
You just justified some marketing
it did
person's
it for me. I don't know.
Whole thing right
their
now.
Whole
you
existence.
Just justified it. Their whole existence. For they're like, we got to do this. It's going to cost us $150 million per year, maybe to $200 million per year to start. But we got to do this. It's going to be $1.5 billion investment. But there'll be guys like Landon Cassill who will buy Cadillacs and wear Cadillac stuff because we are a Cadillac F1 team.
I haven't bought a Cadillac yet, so that hasn't quite happened.
It's close. It's inceptioning.
I don't own a Cadillac.
You're going to just watch. You're just going to one day just be like, I need a car. I guess I'll get a Cadillac. It's like, what? Where'd that come from? You're like, I don't even know.
I might be more likely to get a Cadillac than I would a Mercedes or Ferrari or Alfa Romeo or an Audi. Like, I guess as an American, not to sound tribal, but maybe it is tribal. Like, as an American, why would I go buy an Audi and wear a bunch of Audi gear? I mean, I love Audis. They're great cars. I've owned them. I've had Audis before.
Yeah, me too.
But how cool would it be to drive a Cadillac with the Cadillac? Like, look at the Cadillac logo. Go look at it for a second. It's beautiful.
It is a beautiful logo.
With F1 on the side of your hat.
Oh, no, it works.
And wearing that
It's
in the
surprising
sunshine in the
long.
summer with boat shoes on down at the beach.
Woo! America.
I mean, I'm not actually going to watch
July
any
4th.
races, but
No,
I'll definitely wear the branded apparel and drive around a brand new Cadillac.
That's incredible.
For a moment there, I got it.
Well,
I got it.
I can't wait to see you dressed up in all the garb, driving your Cadillac. Looking
Depends
like
who the driver is.
Yeah, looking literally one step from just having one of the race suits that they auction off at the end of the season and wearing that around.
As long as they don't hire a British driver.
And if they were to, well, we'll see. And if they were to auction it off, you know where they might auction it off? Pristine Auction and our friends there who have been doing this Greatest Day in Motorsports giveaway, which is now less than a week away. We're heading towards it, and we have been trying to give you 4 great things. A signed helmet by Jeff Gordon, a signed photo from Charles Leclerc racing at Monaco, a signed magazine from Johnny Rutherford, and a signed ticket for the Coca-Cola 600 from Dale Earnhardt. This is, if you want to enter and win one of those prizes that we will announce next week after we cross through the greatest day in motorsports of the Indy, or the Monaco Grand Prix, the Indy 500, and the Coca-Cola 600, 2 of which those races be raced in by Kyle Larson if all goes well. Then head to prstn.co/moneylap. Once again, prstn.co/moneylap. Enter our giveaway there to win one of those 4 prizes. And if you don't win it, though, go to Pristine Auction, go buy something, and if you are to use the code MONEYLAP, you get $10 off your first win at pristineauction.com. So maybe that's where Landon will be after this episode, trying to buy his Cadillac racing suit that he can wear with his Cadillac as he watches the Cadillac team race and roots for Cadillac. Also, it is your last chance. These next couple of days, if you're listening to this, which I assume not many of you are listening to this past this week, this is the last chance. Once we get to the greatest day in motorsports, we're cutting it off. You can no longer enter, and we're going to give away those 4 things. I hope you are one of those winners, whoever's listening out there. Should we talk racing, NASCAR?
Let's do it.
No Cadillacs.
Let's do it
this past weekend, by the way.
Yeah, and we don't. We can get in. Yeah, let's get into a little bit of this All-Star race. I was encouraged. Let's just talk about tires for a second, because I know that I've been.
Topic.
I've been critical or cynical maybe about the ability to truly go down this path of soft tires. Like, we left Bristol, and remember, if you go back to those episodes, I talked about how it was so important that Goodyear does not chicken out, right?
Yep.
And reel it back in after seeing those tires not last 40 laps, because you could take the same tires back to the next Bristol race and they'll make them last longer just because the teams adapt. And that's the cycle we need to be in, not the other way around. And I was really encouraged by some quotes from Cliff Daniels on Racer.com. He said that Goodyear was made a very genuine, solid attempt. And that Chris Gabehart said North Wilkesboro showed the short tracks aren't what's broken, and NASCAR promised, by no means are we done. We'll get more aggressive.
Hell yeah.
Now, that's not necessarily a quote from Goodyear, but NASCAR is obviously pushing that they'll get more aggressive. And you have 2 top crew chiefs, complimenting, and Cliff Daniels, I think, is the one that stood out the most to me, saying that this is a very genuine and very solid attempt at a soft tire. That is encouraging to me. That shows me that maybe Goodyear is willing to step outside of their comfort zone, right? Give the teams a tire that might potentially fail early, run the risk of making them look bad. But if everybody is aligned, right, and everybody shares the same vision, we can have a tire that has wear to it, and you don't have the drivers in the teams getting out and just completely on Goodyear.
Yeah.
So they're all kind of working together towards this tire. So that was kind of encouraging to me. And I think the racing product, even though the race wasn't a barn burner in terms of lead changes and things like that, which the All-Star race just generally
always
isn't.
kind of sucks. It always kind of
sucks. And I think, and that's a whole other conversation. In my opinion, it's because I think stock cars just do the best when there's 400 or 500 miles of racing and laps of racing to work with, and live pit stops and strategy. I think it's just hard to put, short sprint races, make them exciting for stock cars, but that's a whole nother conversation. I think that what's important that everybody was optimistic about was you saw a short track that was on brand new pavement.
Yep.
That the racers ran all over the racetrack, right? All clear up to the wall, right? I mean, it was almost hard to.
Dude, that was. I thought in the open.
That.
Well, yeah, in the open, Josh Berry. I mean, he was scraping the wall almost in the center 1 and 2, and I was like, "This is badass. This is amazing." And you could see the rubber lay down. You could see it in the truck race that the rubber laid down and forced them up the track. And so, clap for Marcus Smith and that whole SMI team who did this and repaved this thing. I don't think we've ever seen this. And it just looked like a great racetrack, great design. They nail it. There's the bump off of 4, which has given it some character that they're struggling with if you're on the bottom, which gives the outside a little bit of the chance to have a better run off the corner. And all of that was great. I think the tire, for sure. To your point, they nailed it. In practice, they thought they could only go 40 laps with this thing because it was cloudy and a little bit faster and that sort of thing. And then they got in the race day and it was a little hotter, 2 days later. And, it didn't quite pan out that way. And the teams adjusted, and sure enough, they make the thing last 100 laps. So it's like, okay, but we now you can go further. Okay, let's just go further. The one thing I will say, I do not want to see multiple tire compounds in points races. That's not stock car racing to me. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't fit the ethos. I love testing it out in the All-Star. Great. Gives them maybe it gives Goodyear the confidence to do something crazy with a tire because they have a normal tire there as well. But going forward, don't want to see that make it way into the racing because it's not how this is. It's not, and no offense to Fox on this, but the broadcast was struggling a little bit just even with the tire compound differences. And it's not stock car racing. It's not made to do this. And I don't want to see it.
Well, what I think that kind of similar to our horsepower conversation, not similar. I'm going to draw a similarity to it, but it's not actually that similar. I think when you get the tire right and they wear the way that soft tire did and the track races the way it did, we won't feel the need to ask for multiple compounds.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that they got that right. The track repave was great. It's encouraging to see a repave that actually produces good racing because historically repaves don't produce good racing, right? Not for a long time. And it's possible that that we crack the code here, that you can overcome the threat of a repave by, not
super soft tire.
Not putting a hard tire on the car, right?
Yep.
By keeping the tires soft. And allowing the tires to lay down rubber, and you can still have good racing on a repave. I mean, I think I just had a thought there on those repaves. The point I wanted to make on the repaves that was interesting, and Parker, you've heard me say this. I don't know because we've had specific conversations about this. I don't know if we've done it on the podcast, but you know how I've always said that for some reason road courses are like immune to the repave threat.
Yep.
With stock cars. Like, if we deal with repaves on big tracks, it ruins the racing, right? Think Michigan, think Texas, think Kansas. For years, the racing was horrible on that repave until it had some wear to it. But yet, we've repaved road courses, and the racing almost gets better.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I wonder, in previous conversations we've mentioned this, but it's like this weekend validated that it's because road courses typically have really soft tires. And grippy tires that lay down rubber. And so you can repave a road course, and the track might have that little bit of iciness to it, but with soft tires, the cars grip, they maneuver, they have fall off, the drivers can feel the cars, and it's a good race.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. I think it's possibly what the deal is, but as we learned, as Chris Gabehart alluded to, it's not the tracks that are broken sometimes.
I can absolutely buy into that because we have seen good racing on all different types of racetracks, right?
Yep.
So you can't have a good race on an intermediate and then a super speedway and then a short track and then a road course, but then point at one specific track and be like, okay, racing is broken on that track. Even though I hate Texas Motor Speedway.
Yep.
That track is broken.
Last week. That track's broken.
That track's broken.
Broken.
But maybe it's not. I mean, maybe it's just the tire. We haven't found a tire combination to produce the kind of racing that everybody wants to see at a place like Texas. I don't know.
Yeah. And speaking of Texas, just a sad note. Rest in peace, Eddie Gossage passed away last week. He was president of Texas Motor Speedway for a long time. Great promoter. Did an amazing job, although sometimes he made the competitors angry with his promotions. He always knew how to sell tickets and make it something you wanted to go see. And, maybe a little bit of his ethos. Okay. Yeah, his ethos has continued to live on. The All-Star race got 2.573 million viewers on FS1 for Sunday, up 17% from 2.2 million last year and up from 2.4 million the prior year at Texas. So it did work. One thing Eddie would have done a great job with heading to Charlotte, which I've already seen some promotion. I don't know if you've heard about this, Landon. Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse got in a fight. Literally a punch to Kyle's face. Stenhouse was wrecked by him on lap 2, so they basically came off the corner on lap 1. Kyle Busch was on the outside of 3 wide. Stenhouse was in the middle. It's sort of the one thing you have to realize is the track kind of condenses off of 2 at Wilkesboro. It's why you can't stay on that outside lane off the exit. If you see they kind of diamond the corner off of 2,
right?
Because it really condenses. It gets skinnier, narrower. So it's almost like a funnel. Well, they funneled together. Kyle hit off the wall, then hit into the 47. Kyle was able to get back to his rear bumper and just flat out wrecked him. Kyle then, one thing that's not talked about, also spun
Wrecked
out.
him. Damn near killed him.
Well, yeah. Well, then he spun out the 54 of Ty Gibbs later in the race. Bit of a menace out there, old KB. But let's talk about what everyone wants to know. The fight here. Ricky Stenhouse was not able to leave the track because there is no tunnel and there is no bridge at North Wilkesboro. Although they repaved it and spent all this money, they didn't allow the competitors to get out of that place anytime before the racing's over. So he had to sit around and fester with that. And I did see a thing where he said, I probably, if I could have left, I would have just left and been calmed down. He said, I was pretty calmed down until I realized I was still sitting there when the race was going on. And he's like, then I got pissed again. So he waits for Kyle. He meets Kyle in the garage, a lot of cameras around, and he proceeds to punch him in the face, which turns into an all-out brawl, like a literal brawl. Ricky Stenhouse's crew gets involved. Kyle Busch's crew. His dad was involved fighting Kyle. Kyle's like, what are you doing? And then Kyle's big jack man was ripping people off the hauler, which was pretty impressive to watch as well. Where do you want to go? What do you want to dive into here? Should we judge? I mean, first of all, the punch by Ricky, not a jab. That's a full-on haymaker right there with the right hand. So he went for it, big time. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. This seemed pretty wild of a fight for something that happened an hour and a half earlier than when the fight happened.
Yeah, I don't think it was necessary that late. I think it.
Well,
looked
you don't
a little,
think?
I think it would looked a little. The whole like camera angles that we had leading into it with the HD cameras, whoever it was that had like that first
Bianchi
camera
Jordan
angle
Bianchi.
that we all saw from
behind,
off of like Ricky's right side. It looked awfully WWE-ish. No offense to all the pro wrestling fans out there, because I know there's probably a lot of crossover, but it just looked a little staged and acted and corny. You had like Ricky was changed, wearing his swim trunks or whatever he had on. Like that, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I wasn't a fan. I love Ricky. I would not want to get in a fight with Ricky, by the way.
No, that dude's jacked.
He's
by the
jacked.
way. Dude, so I asked him about this, and no one's
He's
commented on
scrappy.
this.
He's a cowboy.
He
I'm
works
not messing
out
with Ricky.
He works out a ton. I asked him. We played kickball last year at Corley Joyce thing, and I was talking for a while. We were on the same team, and I was like, "Hey, man," I was like, was working out? Like, is this something you've always done? Like, been so fit?" And he's like, "I just kind of got into it." And he's talking about running. Like, I had an off day today. I ran about 15 miles, and I'm just like, "What? Who are you? Like, who? What?" The guy is an absolute beast when it comes to fitness, and he's absolutely jacked. So yeah, I would not want to fight him. I don't think Kyle was standing there in any thought process that he was going to suddenly be punched in the face. That's the other side. Mm-hmm. He's holding a water bottle. He's chilling there. His body is relaxed. Now, being the amateur boxer I have been for the last year and a half, although I've never been in a ring yet, just fighting my trainer, been getting some pads in the bag. I think like the relaxed body of Kyle is like he was sort of inviting, like, "Hey man, let's talk it out. We'll just chat here, whatever." But when he gets nailed in the face, you could tell he was just like, "Is this really happening? Are we serious?" So I don't know. That seemed a bit much. The crew members, as we always talk about, getting involved. I felt like actually in this instance, as I've watched it a couple times, they were actually. Maybe not so much some of the JTG guys, but the RCR guys for sure, when they got in there, were just trying to basically separate things. Like, just get off our hauler, go away, blah, blah, which I think some of that comes from who is the loser in the outcome of the wreck and who is the winner in the outcome of the wreck, right? One felt way worse about it than the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the RCR guys had a little high ground there to not be swinging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just hate it because then you see some there's a couple JTG crew guys that probably took their participation in the fight a little too far. Obviously, Mr. Stenhouse, the dad, Rick, maybe took his participation a little bit too far, and they'll have to pay the price for that, whatever that is, whatever NASCAR deems that to be. I probably won't get to come around for a while. NASCAR takes that stuff pretty serious, as they should. So it's that's what I hate about seeing fights like that in that nature, where it's like so planned, and then it didn't really. I don't know. If I really wanted to see a fight, it's like immediately after they get out of the car, let's see them brawl. Like that's where I could maybe excuse a fight. When it's just like you're still on the track, haven't even gotten the ambulance yet.
Yep. Straight up 1979 Daytona 500 is what you like. You want
Kale and Donnie. Like,
did him parking his car in the stall, was that the point made, and then the fight was just unnecessary at that point? Do you think do one or the other?
I mean, I don't think there's any sort of like a needed check box, check this box, checks that box list here. I think it's a fair question, Josh. No, I don't think I think
here's
that was part
actually
of the
two fight scenarios that I think are appropriate.
Oh, okay, let's go there. Give it to me. What's
scenario
allowed?
number one is when you're in the infield and your cars are smoking and on fire, and it's before the two of you get in the ambulance. That's fight scenario number one.
Yep.
Maybe pit road, but pit road there's a lot of people around, but let's just say pit road too. Like immediately after you get out of the car, you go straight to each other and it's a brawl.
Mm-hmm.
Just that's scenario number one. The other scenario is in the motorhome lot or the airport when nobody's watching, nobody's looking. It's man on man, like no, just no fanfare. No cameras, just two guys being dudes. Pissed
That might
at
be
each other.
considered aggravated or assault.
maybe, but it's just like it's
condoning assault.
It's showing up to media day the next day with a black eye, like, we had a disagreement.
We talked it out.
We're good now.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean, I think the funniest part of this whole thing is that it really was. It was induced by the what is the term I'm looking for? The word I'm looking for here. The location, the circumstance, like that he couldn't leave. It just festered. I would be so annoyed having to stand in there and sit and watch this whole race happen, hadn't just gotten taken out. Like that would really piss me off. I'd be right there with him. And I saw some people be like, "How could he be so angry after that time?" He had to just sit there and watch this all go down. Like, of course he was angry. So I'm not condoning it either. I think it was probably over the top, and it does feel a little staged, but I get his anger, and I get his frustration. So,
I definitely do. I agree.
Yeah. KB, man, he doesn't back down from controversy.
Mm-mm.
Plus, I think, let me just end it with this. He had one of the best burns I've seen in a while, and that was afterwards. There was a video that came out. Ricky says, you wrecked me or whatever, and he says, I don't give, I'm going to wreck you at Charlotte. He says, I don't give an F. I'm running as bad as you are right now.
Yeah, or
as you do.
As bad as you.
I suck as bad as you. I was like,
yeah, I felt like that was sadness coming out.
KB.
A lot of people felt that.
Yeah. Let's talk money and business. Because it's the talk of the town in the NASCAR world right now. The idea that some charters could be up for grabs, which was the talk end of last year, obviously with the Live Fast charter changing hands for reported $40 million. So they're saying now that the charter sales from Stewart-Haas Racing could come within the next few weeks. This is reported by Adam Stern. And I think, there's a lot of conjecture about where these are going or what this could look like. Is it Stewart-Haas Racing go away altogether? Or is one team getting two of them and the other team's getting two? Or one team getting one and another team getting one and one team getting two? There's a lot of discussions. There's been prices out there, talk of prices between 20 and 30 million, which would be a massive reduction considering what the charter sold for last year. I've heard every type of rumor out there in terms of where these are going and what this looks like. There's been the idea that Front Row expands into a 4-car team. There has been rumors of the Toyota teams expanding, whether that's 2311 or Legacy Motor Club, maybe one each or both going to one of them. I think it's all kind of up in the air. So that's, I think, the sort of the conjecture, the rumors, and I'm not putting anything out there that anyone hasn't already put on the rumors mill. Because we don't like to do that. I think the interesting thing here, one is the drop in the price that people are discussing. Some have called it a fire sale. I saw Jeff Gluck use that term, and I don't think that's correct, because I do believe that the charter price, we saw at the end of last year, was inflated off the idea of what was going to happen with this new TV contract. Remember, that had not been done. The understanding of the new charter hadn't been done, and I think the reality of what the charter looks like and the agreement has now suppressed the price of these a little bit. And that's why you're seeing that $20 to $30 million number, which is actually low because these charters actually are way higher in points than the one that sold last year, which was dead last, right? So, a lot to unpack there. Where would you like to head with this? Thoughts, questions, concerns?
I wonder. I think that two things I want to think about here. I think that there's potentially a consolidation of key partner teams on the horizon in the sport. And I think a big part of that is what you've always seen with Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing, right? Toyota has made a concerted effort over the last decade to not... Well, maybe I'm going to contradict myself a little bit because
they've expanded now.
They've expanded, but they've centralized their key partner efforts into Joe Gibbs Racing, and I think that they've been rewarded for that on the track, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think that they've had a great deal of performance by just channeling all of their time and resources and money into that one organization, not spreading it out over multiple organizations that are ultimately competing against each other. And even though they have expanded their car count, the car count, I mean, 2311 is essentially a Joe Gibbs extension, right?
Yep.
The equipment, the technology is all under the Joe Gibbs umbrella. I mean, Legacy is a Toyota team, but I don't think Legacy...
They're not a Joe Gibbs affiliate.
They're not Legacy. A Joe Gibbs affiliate, and I don't think there's much more factory support there than a sub... well, actually, to prove my point, they're not a key partner team, is my point, right? Where Ford and Chevy have multiple key partner organizations. And I don't know what the true qualification is of key partner, but I need to be able to express it somehow. And it's those teams that are getting their engines paid for, the teams that are getting, all the wind tunnel time paid for and the simulation paid for, and access to technology at the highest level that the manufacturer has to offer. That is what a key partner team is. And Toyota has always had one key partner organization, has continued to funnel all the resources through one organization. Chevy has had multiple key partner organizations, except they have kind of consolidated a little bit. I mean, it's kind of Hendrick, Trackhouse, and RCR, where Trackhouse is a key partner, but they get their engines. You have to get your engines from Hendrick or RCR. And even to the point that Chevy over the last couple of years has attempted to consolidate the engine program in a way that Hendrick and RCR have started sharing resources on the engines, right?
Yep.
And they've sort of formed this line. So you have Chevy sort of consolidating, and Chevy with their huge tech center, right? Everybody's sort of working together more closely as one big Chevy camp. Mm-hmm. And that's a directive coming straight from Dr. Warren, straight from Chevrolet. That's like, hey, if you want to be a key partner with us, then you have to share information with the other key partner teams.
Yep.
And I think Ford is yet to do something like that, right? We're yet to see something like that from Ford, but it's probably going to happen. Some kind of consolidation is going to happen there, right? Whether it's Ford going to Penske, RFK, Stewart-Haas and saying, hey, you guys got to work closer together, or Ford just consolidating their resources and support into just one organization or two organizations, Penske and RFK, and saying,
Yep.
all right, you guys have to work together if you guys want our support because, we got to consolidate our efforts to be able to compete with Chevy and Toyota. And then to add the one more thought to this, to kind of wrap a bow on it, is there a new manufacturer coming in? Right? Is this all sort of posturing for a new manufacturer? Do you have Toyota and Gibbs, right? And then do you have Chevy and Hendrick, RCR, Trackhouse kind of around there? You have these 3 Ford teams. Like, who's the one that's going to take a manufacturer, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if this is where this lands in it, but to me, there's some kind of in the air of like consolidation of manufacturer key partner teams, an additional manufacturer coming in potentially. That's all sort of at play here.
Yep.
Gone is the days, or going away are the days of all these teams that run their own independent operation with their own proprietary technology, but same brands, right? 3 different Ford organizations with their own proprietary technology, but they're racing Fords, right? Mm-hmm. Chevy organizations with proprietary technology, but racing Chevys. The manufacturers have so much leverage now because they spend so much money that if they want to win, they have to go to those teams and say, all right, you guys got to share.
Yep.
If we're going to spend $100 million a year on you guys, give you all these tools and these fancy shops to work out of and, simulation programs and all that stuff, then you're going to share information.
I think that's wholly possible, and I think that's what you're hearing with some of the rumors of Ford, 2 of them becoming like a super FRM team, which is connected to Penske, which means it's really Penske and RFK are the main groups, right? Or one goes to FRM, one goes to RFK sort of style, right? So then it just bolsters the amount of high-quality Ford cars from the Penske group and from the RFK. I mean, I absolutely see that, and I think the manufacturers are incentivized to do that because they put so much resources into the sport, and they have a lot of control. And we've talked about that and how much control they have with the wind tunnel and all that stuff going on now. So, it's just continuing to consolidate to become a manufacturer-based series, unless the teams being their independent team sort of series that it was maybe in the 90s and that sort of thing. I think one thing also to point out with the pricing, just talking theoretically here, if these charters really are now going for 20 to 30 million, or say 20 million, so half of what the last place one went for last year. One of the biggest things I think that has caused any sort of drop, aside from maybe there being 4 available when there used to be 0, is the teams fought for this permanence deal, to be a permanent fixture, to have a charter be a permanent thing, that you own real estate in the NASCAR Cup Series, in NASCAR, right? You own waterfront real estate. They're not getting that. That has been a sticking point for NASCAR not to do that and to stick to the 7-year deal tied to the media rights.
We're pretty sure they're not getting that.
Pretty sure. Pretty sure.
I mean, we still haven't, and that's the thing. Let's not forget, we still haven't even.
It's not done.
The deal's not done.
Yep. Well, let's just say they don't. I think that has probably been the biggest drag on price of anything possible. Right? If they were to have announced that, say, at the beginning of this year, I think this charter discussion is a whole different discussion. The value of these could be $100 million each, in my opinion, if it was announced that these were permanent fixtures, that you had a permanent spot, a la stick and ball sports, you owned real estate, they couldn't take it away from you, that sort of thing. That's an entirely different scenario for the value of these charters. Am I wrong?
What could you glean from that number being less? Do they think they're not going to get it? Because if they thought they were going to get it, you would be asking 50 or 40 million like the last one, right? If it's going to 20 million, is that the team's expecting they're not going to get that permanence as well?
Well, and I think the reason they've gone up, say compared to what it was 4 or 5 years ago, we do. I feel fairly confident. I think this is pretty well known that, of course, the teams are going to get more revenue in this newer deal because the TV deal went up itself, right? And just pure numbers there's more money. There means if they didn't change a single number, they'd still be making more money. So I think that makes it higher than it was 4 years ago. But, Josh, yes, I think it does it puts a weight on this, and it holds the values back, no doubt. And I think Adam Stern's article on the Sports Business Journal brought up some of like the women's basketball league and soccer league franchises that are going for $50 million, and these leagues don't nearly have the media rights deal that NASCAR does, but they are permanent fixtures once you get them.
How
I've perplexed
How
him.
does a women's basketball team that does not have anywhere near? I mean, they're promoting the events. Their business. We don't have to get into a big discussion on their business
Let's
models
not go that deep.
because those
The
teams
point is the
traditionally are. It's that's an interesting point. So. Yeah, I mean, I don't. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. I think it makes. There's like I said earlier, I guess there's a couple of different conversations to have about it. Number one is the valuations in the blue sky sort of valuation that you're discussing there, and the other perspective I think is where do the chips fall in terms of where manufacturer support is in this garage, and where should these big teams shake out? Because to me that is a underappreciated, extremely big piece to all this. Because the manufacturers fund so much of these teams' operations, and the manufacturer's support of a team like Stewart-Haas is purely what it takes for them to win. Like, I've said this to people before. I actually said it in a conversation last week to somebody that, and it's kind of been a mantra of mine that you've heard. This sounds like an exaggeration, but it's really not. There's almost no amount of money that you could spend to beat Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing if you didn't have manufacturer support.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, right now, 100%, because you wouldn't get wind tunnel info.
right. There's no amount
So
of
right
money.
then and there, you're out.
You
right then
couldn't-
and there, you're out. You wouldn't get aero info.
Yeah,
Because
you couldn't do it.
the manufacturer's the only ones that can do wind tunnels. So you would have no aero info to know what to do with a car. Never.
So I think that it's for a team like Stewart-Haas to sell their charter, part of me wants to say, okay, charter valuations and the sponsorship here, and maybe Gene Haas is pulling personal money out, and he's not going to self-fund a whole car anymore. And that's probably a huge piece of it, right? Might be the piece of it. But a big piece of it to me, too, and maybe this isn't the piece, but it might be the straw that broke the camel's back, is I think a piece of it is that Ford said to Stewart-Haas, we got nothing more for you. Or, worst case scenario, Ford said, we're backing off our support, right? We're consolidating our support into RFK and Penske. And so if you want to be a Ford team, you have to pay for your own engines, or we're downgrading our support or whatever. I think that's a serious possibility as to what makes the decision for a team like Stewart-Haas. Because if you see every other manufacturer and organization, it just seems like that support is consolidating, they're centralizing, they're trying to figure out how to beat each other under these huge tech, the huge one single roof of these tech centers and centralized technical alliances.
Yep. Yeah.
And if Ford went to Stewart-Haas and said, no, we can't increase our support, or we have to back off our support, and Stewart-Haas doesn't have a new manufacturer coming in to replace them, and then on top of that, let's say there is a team out there that does have a new manufacturer supporting them. I mean, is this tied with a new manufacturer? I don't know. But it would make perfect sense if RCR was the one that acquired these two of these charters, right? Or Trackhouse got two of them, and next thing you know, they're rolling in with a new manufacturer.
Interesting.
So
We'll have to see.
there you go.
Yeah. Well, we'll track this. It'll be fun to discuss, and we will talk about it, I'm sure, as long as it's ongoing, because it will be the talk of the sport. Let's move to the Xfinity Series. We didn't race, as I mentioned. We're heading to Charlotte for our 300-mile race on Saturday, which is going to be awesome. But just quick little bits of news. Josh Bilicki in the 19 car for Joe Gibbs for multiple races starting at Portland. He did the thing, Landon. He did the thing. Take your support, maybe from trying to run full seasons or half seasons at smaller teams. Just go to Joe Gibbs, do a couple races, see if you can win a race.
Yeah,
I think that's the
which
plan here.
I mean,
Don't
what
even have
better
to talk
way?
to him to know that's the plan.
What better place for him to do that at Portland, which
Yep.
he will do great at. He's a
He'll be
phenomenal
good.
road course driver. So,
Yep.
it's he'll probably run second, but that's fine.
Yeah,
It'll be a good
that's
day
fine.
for him.
Good. You can finish second to me anytime. So look forward to that. Also, this weekend we're going to have to be racing against a guy who has a bit of fighting experience this week, so I'm a little worried about what he's going to bring to the track. But Kyle Busch is going to be racing the Xfinity Series in the number 33 car. Pretty cool. He's going to be driving an RCR car. We'll get some good opinion on our stuff. I like that.
He loves just showing up at Charlotte for one-off races in different cars. Like trucks, Charlotte, Xfinity, Charlotte. Charlotte's his spot. He's good there.
Yeah,
He's incredible
Well,
at Charlotte at these places. So
we'll talk to him a little bit later, so we'll get his thoughts on that.
yeah.
And that was it in the Xfinity Series. So looking forward to it. I can't wait to get to Charlotte this weekend after how well we ran at Darlington. I know I've been talking about it for 2 weeks, but damn, we were good. And so it's just I want to get going. If we can bring that same speed, even half the speed we had at Darlington, we've got a shot at it. And I love Charlotte's a fun one. When you got a good car, it's really, really fun. One of the things that caught my interest the most this past weekend, though, and we talked about it beforehand, and I wasn't alone, that was Indy 500 qualifying. Oh, what a show. What a show all weekend. I mean, Saturday, it was a bit of a show, but Sunday was a show. And obviously a lot of eyes on Kyle Larson, which was proven that Sunday's qualifying was the most watched Indianapolis 500 qualifying on record. 1.22 million people on NBC Peacock and NBC Sports Digital, up 38% to 2023. Pretty awesome. That was fun. And we can dive into all sorts of different bits. I think the one thing, as I mentioned, we were all watching this weekend was Larson, how he would do. And he proved why I believe, and I saw the AP article by Jenna Fryer about him being, maybe considered the best driver in the world compared to Max Verstappen. And I've said it on this podcast weeks ago. I said it to Kyle at Talladega. I saw him and I said, hey, I was asked today who's the best driver in the world. I said you, and I'd put you against Max Verstappen any day, and I put all my money on it. If you can put him in 5 different cars, in a perfect scenario world, he takes Max Verstappen to town every single day. Goes to Indy. Never sat in Indy car. Over 240 miles per hour. Got out, gave it a shrug, and said, it didn't feel that different than stock cars. Qualified P5, man. Pretty amazing. I think it's so cool. And I knew the second I saw practice and I saw that McLaren was somewhat quick and how quick they were last year, I was like, he's going to, without the pressure of having to do this one time, he's got 2 years of doing this, he is going to show why he's so, good. And he did it. He did it, man. So impressive.
It's pretty awesome. So it's still a long ways to go, 500 miles to go. More than that because he's got some practice to get through.
Yep.
He hasn't binned it yet.
He's been close. He had a couple. He had a couple moments for sure. He had a moment that I was like, in his hands. The thing that impressed me most about his moment that he had, I think it was on Saturday. Was it? Or was it Sunday? Was it Sunday practice? He had a moment, and his hands. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they go to an Indy car, and it's the same mistake they made in the stock next-gen car when they're first driving it and they had the overcorrection, was that your hands need to slow down. And in like an Indy car, you can actually do this in iRacing, and it translates pretty well. But it's like you don't want to dump the throttle and turn right and try to drive the thing through a slide. You just back the throttle off slowly, and you slowly move your hands. And those two things combined sort of catch and coax the car back into its place because it's on a very tight knife edge right there. When you watch that slide he had on, I think it was Sunday practice, he literally, his hands, the cars, you see it coming around, and his hands just slowly go to the right, and then they come back. I was like, the guy's got it. The guy has got it. It was pretty impressive. Once, before we get to the front of the field, the bumping did occur. Nolan Siegel, 19-year-old, didn't make the race. Went all out trying to get it. He basically wrecked in his final attempt and said, I wasn't going home because I lifted. Gotta love that. What an attitude by that guy. Pretty cool attempt. But one of the guys that was there on the bubble, second year in a row, Graham Rahal. My goodness. Like, how'd you end up there? How do you, RLL, Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan has worked on this. Some of their cars look pretty quick. Sato looked good, but nope, not Graham. And there they were
Tough
again.
second
once
year in
again.
a row for him.
Yeah, real tough. So I don't know.
It's a tough. That's a very difficult situation for them too, because that's a team and a driver, especially where it's like your entire existence revolves around the Indy 500.
Yep.
Right. Like there's a handful of drivers in that field, and by the way, IndyCar is maybe one of the most competitive, like probably the most competitive fields in American motorsports right now. I mean, the Cup Series is pretty darn competitive at the moment, but the IndyCar is very, very competitive. But there's still, like, you have your drivers and teams who are racing for a championship legitimately. And then you have, like, your IndyCar teams that are there that the Indy 500 truly is what their business revolves around.
Yep.
And I feel like Graham Rahal is one of those where it's just like, he's been around a long time. The team's been around a long time. But the Indy 500 is what matters. Mm-hmm. And he missed the race last year. How did he end up getting in the show? Did they buy their way into the show last year?
No, Stephen Wilson
that's
had
right. That's
his
right.
wreck
Stephen
and he
Wilson
hurt his
got
back. Yeah. And so then they did a deal. That's right. Yeah.
And then this year it was like, and he's blaming Honda for the motor, and
yeah, it's not a good look.
That's not good weird. Look. It's just tough. I mean, that's a tough situation to be in. But
I had some conversations with some people. Driver does matter in this qualifying, and you see it when cars that are a little bit looser are able to be driven. I think Catherine Legg put in one of the most heroic laps we've seen in the last couple of years. Runs where she was super loose and just, she got out and said, "I'm physically sick." And she was like, "This is terrible. I wish I went to college and got a real job." It was pretty epic quotes by her. But driver, really, really, really can matter there. And I know people think it's just flat out, that sort of thing. But line and how brave you are on the entries and how wide your line and entry is, really can make a difference. It allows the setup to be different. It allows the degradation to be different as you fall off over 4 laps. And so the tools you use in that car, whether it's the weight jacker, or the roll bars, how you use those and where you feel when to use those, that sort of thing, massively matters over the course of a run. And sure, there's times where the car is just slow or something, but there's times where a driver can make a big difference or force a team down the way. And so, I'm not saying that Graham is doing anything particularly wrong. I just know that when you look at what the difference is at the front of the field, where Scott McLaughlin, let's get into it, fastest pole speed ever, over 234 miles per hour. Just an incredible run late in the day to win the pole in the Yellow Submarine Penske number 3. If you compare him to Will Power or to Joseph Newgarden, you will see, if you can overlay, if you have the Dartfish, you'll see that his line on the entry of 1 is wider and a larger arc than those guys. His car is dancing there on the right rear. He did certain things that he worked on to extract that little bit more performance out of the cars over those laps, unwind his hands on exit if you look at the amount of racetrack he's using, and all that connects. So this is the reason I say it's the last great heroic qualifying in all of motorsports, is that exact reason. Scott McLaughlin at 240 mile per hour entries in the corners was actively being able to make a difference over the course of a couple days of working on that line and making it work to where his team could set up the car differently, and then he go out and nail it. He talked about visualizing. You think people visualize the lap for the Daytona 500? No one even thinks about it. He's literally visualizing his runs and what he's going to do going into the Indy 500 qualifying, because the driver still matters so much around what this qualifying is and how it's set up and how the car reacts over 4 laps and how you can make a difference over those 2 weeks of slowly but surely getting that car faster and faster, them building the setup around the way you're driving it, and then nailing the way you do that in the qualifying session. And that's what he did so well, and that's why he has the record. And, my point of bringing it all the way back to RLL and Graham is that shows you driver makes a big difference. So it can't, it's not always just car. And if I look at the teammates in better situations, right? That's, there might be things he can still learn and do differently that in the last 2 years maybe hasn't quite worked out or hasn't had the chance because they've made mistakes or had car issues. So it's just a great qualifying, Landon. IMS. It's most attended qualifying weekend for the Indianapolis 500 in over a decade, with just under 90,000 fans across Saturday and Sunday. That should be 190,000, in my opinion.
It's exciting.
But
it's good.
some people think I'm the last one who cares. Let's move into F1. Max Verstappen won once again, but he actually did have a challenge. Lando Norris, who had won Miami, finished P2 and was almost within DRS range. Wow, that's a wonderful sentence. A bit of writing there. He was almost within a second to be able to use this opening of the wing that's completely manufactured to make a pass. Here's the question. They're obviously a lot faster than McLaren. Or is Red Bull Racing starting to lose a bit of their advantage in terms of they're not excelling their development as much as McLaren's picking up their development and getting ahead? Or is McLaren just faster and RBR isn't keeping up? Where do we think this is lining up?
I don't know. There's no way for us to answer that question truly because we don't really know what's going on there. I would guess that I think McLaren, just to me, from the outside looking in, it just feels like they're clicking on all cylinders and they're hitting a stride, and so their development is just happening. It's efficient. Their cars are getting better. And Red Bull, they've had so much drama to start the year. There's so many rumors. You can't tell me that it's slowed down their development a little bit.
Yep.
And maybe there's maybe that's what you have. I mean, I feel like you have Lando Norris, who has just been, I think since this time last year, Lando has gotten in a real, he became an F1 driver for me this time last year. Truly, I think that he elevated to another level as an F1 driver this time last year. And so I think that whole team is just hitting a stride. I think Red Bull is maybe stumbling a little bit. Let's not forget that they may still win 80% of the races the rest of the season.
I know.
They've been a second faster than the field for a couple of years now. But they're being challenged, right? And that's a huge difference. That means that McLaren has made up a huge gap. Huge gap.
Yep.
In not that, in a pretty short amount of time. So it's pretty interesting. I think the most interesting thing I saw there, though, that was a little bit more of a Max thing, was just the tactics he was taking at the end of the race to keep Lando from getting into DRS in the the long straightaways. Mm-hmm. And kind of the what is he? How can he manage the regenerative braking or whatever they have in those cars? I saw some data on Twitter that was explaining it all. That was pretty interesting to me. That showed that Lando was just having to really bomb it into these corners, trying to close that gap so hard to be able to get DRS on the long straightaway, and couldn't make it happen.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that about Lando because, you think about this time last year, Oscar Piastri has come into the team. He's becoming the de facto leader, and he's sort of rising up to be like, I'm the number one guy here, right? And I think he, he's taken that hold, and there's nothing quite like winning for a race car driver's confidence. Mm-hmm. So never underestimate the level of which winning can help a race car driver in almost every area of their life.
Well, this is the timing of his Miami win, and I texted you this last week. The timing of his Miami win was perfect, right? And then I got to feel like his confidence coming out of this weekend has got to be perfect for going into Monaco. Because now you're looking at a team that has the pace, that all he has to do is put down a lap in qualifying in Monaco.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
100%. You're right, because if you do it, and if they nail, then from that point, it's so hard to pass. Just nail the strategy, don't mess up, don't make any mistakes, and bam, you've got it. One name I think that could be, one to watch there at Monaco, though, and I said it this past weekend, and without him having the grid penalty he had, I think he would have been in contention for this past weekend. That is Oscar Piastri, his teammate at McLaren. Super fast. I think this weekend was perfectly positioned for him. It was a track I felt like really suited him. And I don't know. I don't know what his Monaco outlook looks like, but he's quick. And, as you mentioned, you just got to nail it for a couple laps in qualifying, and you have a chance of winning that race. And that's a big deal.
What time is? I know we've got the weekend ahead here when we finish, but what time is qualifying in Monaco? Because we need to make sure, as listeners, as ourselves, we need to remind ourselves of that, because that's truly what we don't want to miss.
Yep. It's a good point.
What does it look like this weekend for us to be able to catch qualifying?
I'm pulling
Saturday,
it.
9:55 a.m. Eastern time.
Saturday.
Yep. So 10 a.m. Eastern. Yep. So on ESPN2, catch it there. Don't miss it. Do not miss it. Let's make some predictions of the biggest weekend in motorsports. Once again, we're doing that giveaway of Pristine auction. If you want to go check it out, prstn.co/moneylap to enter. It's the last couple days you can do that leading to the biggest weekend. So we've had our Monaco predictions. You and I just did it. We think McLaren's. You're going Landon Norris. I'm going Piastri. Who do you think wins Indy?
I think it's gonna be a Penske car. I think it's gonna be a Penske car. But the thing I love about Indy is it's such a strategy race, right? It's a pure 500-mile race.
Yeah.
Fuel strategy is gonna be a factor. There's gonna be some attrition. There always is. And I'm gonna be rooting for Kyle Larson, obviously. I'm gonna be rooting for Connor Daly, obviously. But I think that the Penske cars are about a mile an hour faster than the field, at least in qualifying.
That was in qualifying. I know my guy, and I'm seeing here now he's plus 1,500 in terms of the odds, and that is Colton Herta. He had a super good race car. Didn't show it in qualifying, but they'll be crafty. The race car, the race winning car, and the fastest qualifying car don't always gel at Indy. And Indy chooses its winner, and for some reason, I feel like Colton Herta is about to go get his biggest win of his life.
Well, there you go. I think it's Will Power will actually win it. The odds on Kyle Larson are a sucker bet, but
yeah, do not take. What's he plus
700? He's the fourth best odds to win. That's horrible numbers on Larson, but there's probably the hype train there. So the book will be making some good money on Larson, but man, I hope I'm wrong, because it would be cool to see Larson in victory.
Cool. I'm rooting for him.
You guys want to guess what the odds are that'll win the Indy 500 and the Coke 600 based on the odds for both of them combined?
Yeah, what's that?
Plus 4,300 for Kyle Larson to parlay both the Indy 500 and the Coke 600.
It's not great. It should be, it should be, someone should do the actual odds.
There should be odds. There should be odds on if he wins the Indy 500, if he even makes it to the green flag of the Coke 600.
He said it's a priority the whole time. It's a priority. It's a priority. It's a priority. He's had to say it so much. I can hear him saying it's priority in my head. Cup predictions. Who wins Coke 600? Chase Elliott. There's your winner.
Oof. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I kind of want to put my money on Larson there.
Wow.
I think Hendrick cars will be fast. I think he'll be coming back with some confidence. Cup cars will feel slow. He'll be tired though. Maybe William Byron. Maybe I need to bet on Byron. Remind me to pick Byron this week. Actually, just already put it in the notes in case I forget to text you guys.
Byron's your guy. All right.
Byron's my guy.
Him. I'll take Chase. We both have Hendrick cars. We mentioned it's the greatest weekend in motorsports. You've got it all this coming weekend. And, yeah, there's a bit more other racing. I think even Formula E is racing this weekend. So everything's racing. It's one of the biggest weekends in all of motorsports. I'm racing the Xfinity Series. Let's get to it. Oh, no. Kyle Busch isn't going to be on here. He's had to leave to go do some fighting lessons. Apparently, this just got booked, so we apologize. He won't be making it on. All right, well, there's next week. We'll try again.
Darn it.
All right. Enjoy the greatest weekend of motorsports. Peace. Thanks for listening to the Money Lap. As always, check out themoneylap.com for the best 5 minutes in motorsports, or sometimes just the coolest stuff in motorsports, delivered directly to your inbox 3 times a week. Check us out on YouTube. We're growing fast over there. And of course, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. We're all over the internet. We're spreading the word of how cool motorsports is. Check us out.